like the end. I mean, can you believe that we've already finished this series? We're at the end, and it kind of creeps up on you, which the end kind of does. We're at the end game, and we've been talking about the end for quite a while now. If you're new with us, we're glad you're here. As we're finishing this up, I want to be kind of clear. We weren't just talking and are not talking about just the end of the world or just the second coming of Jesus, but our end. When you and I die, when you and I go through that time of uncertainty, that time of suffering in some cases, our end matters. And so these texts that have been written about the end of the world really should apply to our lives too, because look, when you and I die, that's our end. That's it for us. And that end matters. And so we've been talking about that for the last few weeks to find encouragement and hope in these stories about the end. Now, in our studies at Revelation in particular, it's not been easy. These are very, very difficult books and scriptures to read. Not that they were intended to be that way. I think their intention was not to be confusing or complex or controversial, but their intention was to bring hope. And the difficulty for us is we're removed by 2,000 years from the writing of these books. And so their stories, the events that were shaping their lives, are not as familiar to us. It's kind of like hearing two people talk about a movie you didn't see, right? So you don't get all the references, you don't get all the jokes. You may get the gist of the movie, but you don't get the details. And in some ways, we're kind of doing that with Revelation and apocalyptic literature in general. Because one of the things that was going on is for them, if you remember, this is a time of deep suffering. They're losing their farms, their friends, their families. They're being persecuted and chased from town to town. They were struggling. And so they wrote these words to provide encouragement. And the one way they did that was to say, you know what? Things are bad, but we believe and trust God. We believe that God is with us today like he was in the past. So they went back and grabbed these older stories from God's actions with his people, and they brought those forward and layered on top of them their current stories. So that you had this layer of God's faithfulness in the past with what God was doing in their world today, and not just in the natural world, but in the spiritual world. And all that gets kind of piled together, and it creates this canvas of encouragement and hope that we call Revelation. So we talked a lot about various aspects of Revelation, of this kind of literature, the way it's written and how the story is told. One thing we didn't talk a lot about yet, a little bit, but not a lot, was the use of numbers in these books. And that's where a lot of folks get tripped up. They get tripped up in the numbers, and for good reason. A lot of times when you think of a number, you think of something that's pretty definite, right? I went into engineering when I was in high school. I went to engineering because it was definite. Right? You knew that 2 + 2 is always going to be 4. Forever and ever and ever, that's pretty firm. I like that. I'm much more comfortable in that firm, solid, I know it's going to happen, I got the details, that kind of world. But when you get into engineering school, you start learning about stuff like differential equations, probability, statistics, and all of a sudden, like, math isn't so definite anymore. It's not as firm as I thought it was. So math itself has layers. Like this kind of literature, apocalyptic literature, math has layers too. So let me give you a couple examples of how math has layers, just for fun. So let's say, for example, last week you were watching, I don't know, the Cubs win the World Series. Right? Cubs win the World Series. I'm not going to let it go anytime soon, by the way, just so you know. All year we talk about the Cubs in the World Series. But you're watching it, and you want to get some food, okay? Don't like corn dogs, you want to get a pizza. So what you do is you go out, and you're going to get a deep dish, Chicago-style pizza for all your friends. But you want to know, how much do I need? How much pizza do I need? So you want to make an equation to calculate the amount of pizza you need, right? So here's the equation, right? All right. Write an equation for the volume of a thick crust Chicago-style pizza that has the radius of Z and the depth of A. Write an equation that for deep dish pizza that has a depth of A radius of Z. What do you get? This, take a look. The volume is pi times Z times Z times A. You get pizza. It works, right? Pi r squared times A. So, and you kids, who are like in the test, like, what's the volume of a cylinder? It's pizza. Right? So you kind of know, right? But it's got layers. How about this one? Math, like apocryphal literature, can be complex. Why can't we be together? It's complex. Get it? Complex, square root of -1. Okay. How about this one? Apocryphal literature can seem irrational. Be rational. No, get real. Okay, that was pretty good. This one's fun. Apocryphal literature can be symbolic. It can be symbolic. Who can read this for me? First one, read this for me. Go. Anybody? I ate some pie. See? I ate some pie. It's symbolic. Okay, look, you guys hired an engineer for your minister, so you deal with it. All right. One more, and this is my favorite one, okay? An infinite number of mathematicians walk into Andy's coffee. The first says, I'll have a hot cup of coffee. The second says, I'll have half a cup of coffee. The third says, I'll have a quarter cup of coffee. The fourth says, I'll have an eighth cup of coffee, and on and on and on and on to infinity. Corey, the barista, brings out just 2 cups of coffee. And they say, is that all we get? We need to be caffeinated. Is all we get is 2 cups of coffee? And he says, come on, guys, know your limits. It's a Convergent Infinite series. You don't get that joke? Come on, man, this is good stuff. Nothing better than engineering humor. All right, here's the thing. Yeah, there's a lot of things better than engineering humor. Here's the thing. Numbers in the Bible did have layers of meaning. So like the number 40, for example, right? We had 40 years that the Israelites spent in the wilderness, being tested by God. Then Jesus spends 40 days in the desert, being tested by Satan. Those two things kind of go together. Those two references apply to each other. Where Israel failed their 40 years, Jesus succeeds in his 40 days, right? So there's a number kind of convergence there. The number 12, for example, you have 12 tribes of Israel. You have 12 apostles. Those kind of go together. There's a new nation being created with Jesus and these 12 apostles. So those numbers then get kind of used together for other convergences. They kind of come together. So in the book of Revelation, there's a number for the number of people who gather to worship God. It's 144,000. And a lot of folks, even some denominations, say, well, that's it. It's all that gets to heaven, 144,000. And you're thinking, whoa, what if I'm like one more than that? I'm like 144,001, that's me. Is it just 144,000? Well, no, it's a symbolic convergent number. So you have 12 apostles, right? And 12 tribes of Israel. Combine those two, what do you get? 12 times 12, 144. Times a multitude, a big, huge number like 1,000, which is a number used in the Bible, you get 144,000. And that's the kind of stuff that goes on with these numbers. They carry concepts forward. You hear those numbers, you think of conceptually. We saw it also with the number 666. There's this idea called gematria, which is a Greek word for geometry. It's the same word. And where you use letters of the alphabet to be numbers, right? So Nero's name, if you take the numbers associated with those letters, you get 666. And they did that a lot. We do it with the Super Bowl. Right? LXV1, Super Bowl, So we do that kind of stuff. Well, that was going on then too. The way that today I want to talk about, though, this other way is when numbers are used as reminders. Reminders. Things that you can hold on to. Okay? So, for example, the number 7 is a big number in the Bible. 7 days of creation. Why number 7? Well, you have 6 days he made stuff. The 7th, what did he do? He rested. Why did he rest? It was done. So number 7 is like this idea of complete and whole and finished and done. So in Revelation, we had 7 angels who had 7 bowls and 7 angels with the 7 trumpets and so forth. But the idea was they were cycles of being complete. You with me? So then we get other numbers that get associated with that. So there's 3 numbers I want to talk about today. 3 numbers that are these reminder numbers in Revelation that are often misinterpreted. And they're numbers 3.5, 42, and 1260. And they all go together. So here's where they kind of appear. Revelation 12:14. It says, "But the woman was given 2 wings of the great eagle so that she could fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to her place where she was nourished for a time, and times, and half a time." Daniel 7:25. "And they shall be given into its power for a time, 2 times, and half a time." Daniel 12:7. "And I heard him swear by the one who lives forever and ever that it would be for a time, 2 times, half a time." Add it up, what do you get? Time, 2 times, half a time is 3.5. Okay, 3.5. 3.5 years is the idea. All right, Revelation 11:2. "And they will trample over the holy city for 42 months. Revelation 13:5. "And it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. Then Revelation 11:3. "I will grant my witness authority to prophesy for 1,260 days. Revelation 12:6. "The woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God so that she could be nourished for 1,260 days. What do all 3 of those numbers have in common? Well, 3.5 years, we got that. 42 months is how long? 3.5 years. 1,260 days in a 30-day calendar is, guess what? 42 months, 3.5 years. They're all the exact same period of time, right? All of them. So they're saying the same thing over and over again, but for what reason? Why would 3.5 be a number that they wanted to remember? Well, remember their context, right? There are people who are suffering. There are people under oppression. And when you're suffering and you're being oppressed and you're having a hard time, what do you want more than anything else? It to be over, right? You're sitting there watching the worst movie ever, like The Holiday, okay? You're watching this terrible, terrible movie, which Stacy loves, and what do you want more than anything else? To see the credits, right? You want it to be over. Well, in some ways, when you're going through difficult times, that's the goal. And the number for being it's over, for being complete is what? 7. And so being halfway there is 3.5. And so this number, 3.5, 42, 1,260, becomes a number of hang in there, endure, don't give in, because you're halfway there. You've gone halfway, just stick it out a little longer. We do this with our kids. When we were in Georgia, these big, huge storms would roll through, right? And then you have lightning and thunder. And what do kids do when there's a storm? Run to your bed, or they call you to their room. And when you get there, they're afraid because the lightning and the thunder are all together. You see lightning and thunder, boom, same time. But as that storm moves on, what happens? Lightning, then the thunder. Lightning, thunder. And so you tell the kids, hey, look, let's just count, right? See the lightning? Yeah, saw that flash, boom. Okay, count 1, 2, 3. See the thunder's running away. It's getting farther away. And you keep counting. Each time you hear that lightning or see the lightning, you hear the thunder, you just keep counting. And eventually they relax and they fall asleep because the worst is over and it's fading off. And so they had this number to remind them of like, hey, don't give in. We're almost through this. I have a hard time remembering these kinds of things. One other example of this in my life was when we had our first child. So Stacy was pregnant with Abigail, and we go to the hospital, and she's going to deliver a baby, and they do all those monitors and plugs and stuff they hook you up to, right? And they start monitoring her contractions. Now remember, she's married to an engineer at the time. I think that's really cool stuff. Like all these gadgets and machines. I'm like, this is awesome, right? So there's this one coming out that's showing the strength of her contractions. And my first thought is, cool. So I wanted to see like how accurate this thing is. Like how do they know like how accurate these levels are? So the first thing I did was I looked at the scripture. I'm like, hey, Stacy, it's getting up really high. Is this hurting pretty bad? Is it getting worse? Because it's showing like it's going up, man. This is, yeah. Well, I found out it's pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate. And here's the thing. After the first one, I learned something, right? Because it was going to cost me my life if I did that again, was that what you do is you wait until it gets to the top of that little curve, 3.5, right? We get to the top of the curve. Then you say, it's almost over. Just hang in there. It's getting better, right? Don't say anything in the first half, but the second half you can say, it's okay. We're halfway done, right? Well, the same thing is going on here in Revelation. Right? God is saying to his people, look, just hang on. It's almost over. The problem is, as a people, sometimes we're more interested in how long instead of hang on. Right? There's a big difference there. We get paralyzed because we sit there and we wait. Come on, let's get this over with. We get this over with. Instead of actually being engaged and hanging on to Jesus and his message and his mission, we're like just kind of waiting for it to be over. And that wasn't the point. The point was to hang on and be faithful. And to get that idea across, there's a general concept in the New Testament called the already and the not yet. It's just a general view. In fact, if you, as you leave today, there's a handout in the lobby. You can take all the verses about this already, not yet. It's on the app as well. But there's this general concept that time was going along, like just life, and then Jesus shows up. God comes as Emmanuel. He lives with us. And his kingdom is here with him. And that goes along with the church and today. And then one day, in the not quite yet, he'll come back. And this old time ends and his time continues. So he's kind of already here today with us. He says he is. But it's just not yet finished. And so the idea for us is hang on. He's with you, and so you need to hang on to him instead of being worried about how long. And one of the best examples of this is in Matthew 12. And it's a story where Jesus has been healing people, and they're excited about that, and people are getting kind of rallying around him for what he's doing, and they're feeling God's presence is with them, that God's like here. He's already here. But some of the leaders, the Jewish leaders, are like, no, we're in charge. Like, we don't hear about this Jesus guy because he's taking our authority away. They're questioning his motives, his authority, and his purpose. Well, one day they bring Jesus a blind man who's also possessed by a demon. And Jesus cures the man. He can see, he can talk, he's in his right mind. People see this and they're excited and they say, man, praise God that God's with us. That God is already here today. But these leaders are like, no, we can't accept that. Despite that he did his good thing, they attack his motivation. They attack the reasons he does it. And they say that Satan is the reason he does this. He is doing this on Satan's behalf. Ever have someone attack your credibility or your motivations despite you doing the right thing? It happens. Because they can't accept those two could go together. These people do that, and so they begin to blame Jesus for doing good things in Satan's name. And Jesus says, you know what, that's just ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. In Matthew 12:26, he says, he knew that they were thinking this and said to them, every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? He says, look, Satan knows better than that. You can't live a divided house. So I'm not doing this on Satan's behalf. And then he adds this in verse 28. But if it is by the Spirit of God that I cast out demons, then the kingdom of God has come to you. He says, if I'm doing this on God's behalf, which I am, then God's kingdom's here. The thing you longed for, you wanted, is here. Not complete yet, but it's here. So hang on. Now. And that's kind of our purpose and our freedom. Jesus comes and says, hang on, but you have freedom now. You have hope now. It's almost over. I'm coming again. But too often, I think the church in general is more interested in how long than hang on. How long then hang on? In the world today, only 22% of people have a positive view of the church. And every week, 43,000 Americans leave the church for good. And part of that's because we've lost sight of that already not yet vision. It's easy to kind of hold on instead of hang on. You see the difference? So if we hang on to Jesus, we're going along with him and what his mission is. But when we hold on, just what we have, or we wait for how long till it ends, we kind of miss the purpose of what it means to hang on, to challenge ourselves, to be involved in the world, to do the mission of Christ today, in the already, not wait for the not yet. When I was in seminary, when I first entered seminary, so that was probably 15 years ago or more. Probably more than that. I entered seminary, and I was excited. I've been an engineer for about 5-6 years at that point, and I was learning new things. I was excited about new things, and I was thankful to my professors and the teachers and all those who shared their lives with me and taught me. But one of the things I quickly learned as well was there's this kind of disconnect between the mission of Jesus, right, making the kingdom of God present to as many people as possible in the world in creative and new ways, and this idea that we had to kind of hold on. Every year, 4,000 churches in America close, and there's a reason for that. Because we're holding on instead of hanging on. We're holding on to what we have and lost that mission, and people around us see it. We live in a skeptical generation, right? We do. And look at the church and say, are you doing the things that Jesus called you to? And so I have had this passion since I started seminary to do that. But it's hard because in some ways you got to take care of what you already have and then still move forward. So you're kind of caught between the two things. Well, there's 4 things I think we can do as a church in America and here at Chaparral to make that happen. The first is this: take care of what's been given to us. Right? We honor the past. Like we sit here, for example, at Chaparral in a beautiful sanctuary, in a beautiful campus, and part of Scottsdale with people who have taught us and taught our kids and ministered to each other. We honor that, and so we need to continue that. Our tithes and our offerings, our financial stuff helps take care of this stuff so we can pass it on to another generation after us. We need to take care of our responsibilities and take care of what we've been given, and to work together to do that. But the second thing is this: to create a campus that provides for active and meaningful ministry every day of the week. Every day. I think too often churches focus on Sunday and they miss the fact that we have resources for every day. We should be doing ministry every day in creative ways, meeting folks where they have needs. So for example, we have a preschool here at the church. It operates every day of the week, and it's one of the best in Arizona. If it's not the best, it's right towards the top. It has a waiting list. And it gives a chance for kids to come and to grow in a safe place, a nurturing place, to learn about Jesus and math and all kinds of stuff, right? But it meets real needs. And then we started CrossFit 6 years ago. And yeah, it's a fitness program, but more than that, what's it about? Community, building relationships, finding friends, going hiking, doing that kind of stuff. That's what it's there for, to do something that people need and want in the Spirit of Christ in a very positive way. And then we started Andy's a little less than a year ago for the same kind of idea. Yeah, it's got great coffee, but the idea is not the coffee. It's the building the puzzles. It's hanging out the prayer garden, being with your kids around the splash pad, having a business meeting, but doing all those things together every day of the week to build relationships. So for example, there's a young lady who was invited to CrossFit. Someone invited her to CrossFit. She tried it out. She got hooked. Started going to Andy's, right? Started doing that. Next thing you know, what is she doing? She's in Haiti, taking care of people on her last mission trip. It's that kind of relationship building that we want to occur every day of the week. And then that leads kind of the third thing, and that's connect with your friends, right? Get your friends involved. Invite them. Like if they have questions about God, I know a place they can ask questions. Any questions acceptable here. We ask and answer any question that doesn't matter at Chaparral. Invite them to a worship service, or invite them to get fit. Invite them to have a cup of coffee. But get them to participate and get to know people. And here's the key. As these weekday ministry opportunities grow, as they get bigger and more successful, What they're going to do here at the church is fund a lot of the stuff we need to do every day, every week that exist. Air conditioners, parking lots, trimming trees. That's what's got to be done. And those outreach type ministries can help fund those things. For the fourth thing, here's the kicker, the coolest thing about all this is that if we can use those weekday opportunities, those weekday programs to fund the everyday stuff around here, then the money that we give on a Sunday, our tithes and offerings, can actually leave this place and take care of underfunded ministries across the world. If churches are closing every year in America, so are missionaries, so are mission programs, so are feeding programs. We want to be able to fund those things that need us. So we use our weekday stuff to take care of the everyday stuff, so we're freed up to take care of these ministry opportunities beyond us. How cool would it be? How cool would it be is if in a few years, every dollar we give on Sunday leaves and goes someplace else? Then the church can begin hanging on to the mission that Jesus gave us, to make his already present to as many people across the world as possible. So we take care of our responsibilities here. We invite friends to get involved in different ways, to connect, so that we can then engage a much broader and wider world than we thought possible. And all that means that we work together to make those things happen. It means living God's kingdom in the already right now. Look, my goal here at Chaparral is not to build a big church. It's to be a great church in everyone's lives that we touch and those around us. In a second, we're going to sing a song. It's a great song. It's an old song. It's called Victory in Jesus. And that victory isn't just something that's going to happen in the future that we wait for. We kind of sit and wait to get there. It's the victory we celebrate like today. We celebrate it when we share, when we give, when we invite, we participate. It's a victory that we claim already to be with us. And it's a victory that we live today. Let's pray together.